Hey everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful week. I got to sit down with my good friend Jimmy J, CEO of Apricot Solar, and he's actually one of the most innovative minds in solar. He shares a unique way to finance your solar and goes into a deep dive on what it means to go solar in 2023. I hope you enjoy this interview with my friend Jimmy J. I'm excited to welcome my guest, Jimmy J. He's agreed to sit down with me. We've had some amazing conversations since we met at the Better Wealth Mastermind over the summer, and we've become friends. And he shared a lot and talked with me a lot about solar and different things he's doing for his clients to help people all over the United States and in Canada. And I've invited him on so he could really share with me some things that people need to know about the future of solar and really some of the specific funding strategies that are available that I think are really interesting that I'm looking to learn more about so we can bring to the community. So Jimmy, thanks so much for coming on and taking time, man. I appreciate having you here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really glad to be here with you.
That's awesome. So I understand you got some slides that you prepared and we've kind of talked about. I want to go through those and dive right in because I know there's a lot here. We want to get it all in our time. So if you can, let's start with those and I got a couple questions for you.
Well, yeah, I think some people watching this might know a lot about solar. Some of them may not. So I can go through a little bit about that, but really speak to you today through the lens of somebody who is involved in infinite banking and they already understand those principles. I think the first thing to understand about solar is really it's simply an inflation play. That's it. The goal is just to get off of these rising rates. And inside of the infinite banking concept, sometimes when you first learn about it, it might be confusing. There might be a lot. And then once you realize a couple core fundamental principles, then everything's really simple. You understand somebody's going to be the banker in my life, and it may as well be me. And in the same sort of way, you understand that we're going to be using electricity for the entire rest of our lives. And so, somebody's going to perform that function, and it's either going to be a utility company that takes that money, or that money is going to be recaptured and it's going to stick within, my family banking system. So, I'll see if I can share my screen with you here. One second. The question I would ask is, let's say you were a bank, right? And there was a potential loan you could make, and it was a 25-year loan. The loan was secured by a physical asset. You're only lending to homeowners. The asset's going to add value to the home. The monthly loan payment is replacing a current expense, which replacing an electric bill, meaning that the homeowner's expenses don't go up. And as a bank, you get to charge 35% interest front loaded in year number one. There's also a good chance the borrower is going to pay back 30% of the cost of the system in year number one. And then you continue to get monthly payments for the next 25 years. Right? Is this if you were a bank, would you make that loan?
Yeah.
Right. The homeowner sells the house, the monthly payment transfers to the new homeowner. It doesn't matter how long they live there, right? Somebody's going to be using electric as long as that house is standing. So if you answered yes, that if you were a bank, you'd make that loan. And if you're an infinite banker, well, you are a banker. And so you should make this loan to yourself. So since 2000, rates just, go up and up and up and up. And generally they're going up 5 to 8% per year. There's some markets where, they've had a 50, 60% rate increase. If you look at just inflation, everybody can agree that, it's at 8, 9, 10%. And this is just a quick little graph of that. But inflation is really just done by kind of a bucket. Here's the bucket of these goods, and it's gone up by 9.1%. If you go to the same Bureau of Labor Statistics and you just click on energy inflation, it actually shows energy inflation is 41%, not 9%, 41%. So energy just keeps going up and up and up. And unless you're going to turn off your air conditioner, unless you're going to light candles, we're all going to continue to use energy. So this is a problem that, isn't going away. And if you talk to my grandparents and they had a $40 electric bill, and you told them way back then, hey, one day you're going to pay $200 for electricity, they'd say, that's crazy, right? That's a mortgage payment. No one's going to pay $200. That's 5 times what we're paying right now, but people are paying it today, right? So your grandchildren one day, if they would have told you one day you're going to pay $1,000 for an electric bill. They'd be like, you're crazy. That's a mortgage payment. But that's where we're headed. And there's already places in the United States where that's already happening. Yeah. So before I move on, any comments or any questions about that?
No, I think it's well said. I mean, in Arizona, the summer air conditioning bills, if you don't want to, have to sacrifice or, depending on the size of your home, are already, 700-800 a month. So, I mean, and again, it totally depends on your comfort level and size of your home, but it is crazy.
We're already there, right? I've seen electric bills in California that are like $1,500 because the cost of energy is so high there. So, basically got two choices over the next 25 years. If it was $200 a month that you were paying with an average 6% annual rate increase, you're going to pay $142,000 over the next 25 years. And at the end of that, you just keep paying the electric company. Wow. If you're able to go solar, even if it was the same 200 with no rate increases, it's going to cost you $60,000 over the next 25 years. At the end of that, you own the system free and clear. You're adding value to your home right from day number one. And in this instance, you're probably going to get a $15,000 federal tax credit incentive front-loaded year number one. So this is really the choices that somebody has. And usually we're just paying this bill on auto pay. And you know how in investing, it's like you put $200 away, it goes up by 6% a year, and magically 30 years later, you got $500,000. Well, it is the opposite, right? People are doing the opposite of that. They're on the wrong end of compounding, the wrong end of inflation, with the utility companies, where you just throw this money in, and all of a sudden you've paid them a couple $100,000 in 25 years from now.
Wow.
So here's some kind of tangible examples. If it goes up by 4.5%, energy inflation was 42% this year. But even if you assume that it's a 4.5% inflation, that $300 bill now is a $400 bill in 10 years, is a $650 bill in 20 years. And it keeps going up and up and up. And for a lot of people, this is right around the time that they're looking to retire. And so their bills are going up in a time where they're in retirement, right? So we want to flip that around. If you look at cumulatively, right, in 10 years, you paid $41,000. In 20 years, you've paid $106,000. And in 30 years, you paid $206,000. And that's not even counting, right? If you had recaptured those dollars into your family banking system, what that could have grown to. That's $206,000 of input, right? Not even considering what that could grow to if you understand the infinite banking concept. So kind of looks like this. That is a little bit about kind of why to go solar. It's not every single home qualifies. There's three things that really matter a lot when it comes to solar. One of them is sun exposure, right? How much sun is in your area? In the state that you're in, is there a lot of sun? Vegas is going to produce more energy than Seattle because Seattle has a lot more clouds, right? Second is replacement cost. And this is a really big one. How much are you paying the electric company right now? So there's places like Oregon where it might be 8 cents a kilowatt hour, which means if you use 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, it costs you $80. Those same 1,000 kilowatt hours in San Diego cost you $510. Okay, so this replacement cost of energy matters a lot, because if you go solar and maybe your solar costs you $100 a month, in Oregon, that $100 is replacing an $80 bill. So you're actually paying more to go solar, where in San Diego, it might be saving you $400 a month. So what is the replacement cost of energy? We figure that out by taking a look at your electric bill. And the third one is called net metering. So you may have heard that the electric companies will actually buy back your extra energy. That exists in some utility companies. It doesn't exist in others. Some of them you need to buy a battery, some of them you don't. So that will affect your savings. So those are really the three things. Here's kind of some of the states that we operate in, and some of the top states as far as those different components about how much sun do they get, what's the net metering look like, and what's the replacement cost of energy. If you're any of those states on the left, there is a very good chance that you can be able to save a lot by going solar. So a couple examples. This is a yeah, just a family. Their bill was 281. They were able to drop it down to 149 a month. Their 30-year energy savings is 147,000. The home went up in value by 10%. There's some studies that show that. So that's 45,000 in home value increase plus a tax credit. So this family saved $206,000.
Wow.
Here's another example. In this one, they're in Texas and they're actually paying more. They're paying $30 more per month from day number one, but getting off of those rate increases, right? So they have a $60,000 savings. They home value goes up by 29,000, and then there's a government tax credit. And so they're still saving $104,000, even though their monthly payment starts off a little bit higher, because they're redirecting that money, back to their family bank. So the bottom line is somebody's going to be performing that energy function in your lifetime. If you think like an infinite banker, there's a good chance that that person should be you. Wow. So any comments on this section?
No, that's great. I've never had it framed that way before, but it totally makes sense when you think about those same principles. They're very applicable to energy as well. And I think that's really brilliant the way you frame that for people to have a good understanding of how to look at the future of energy costs.
100%. And you can look at it two ways. You can look at it like, hey, this is there's infinite banking over here and there's solar over here, and they're totally different, but solar uses some of the same principles. Or you can use some of those same principles over here with solar, and then you can take that extra money that you were going to be spending on your electric bill every month, and you can start to redirect that into your family bank, and you can actually use it to accelerate and supercharge what you're already doing in your infinite banking policies. People a lot of times don't know what does actually look like to be able to go through solar. So basically what it would look like is you'd sit down with somebody, they would do something like this. So it's a full satellite shade report where they would take a look at your home and how much sun hours there are. They'd show you kind of what the environmental impact is. And then they would show you what is the financial impact. So over on the right-hand side, here's what this accumulated savings is month over month over month. In this homeowner's case, it's 206,000 over 26 years. Yeah. And that's not even what the money would grow to. This is all putting money into a savings account at 0%. Please don't do that. I'm not financially licensed, so I can't tell you to put it somewhere else, but you probably might know somebody who could show you where to invest some of that money. I think the two biggest mistakes people have when they go solar, because solar over the long term, it's going to make sense in almost every situation. If you think like an infinite banker, that is. One problem would be if you have the wrong installer. So sometimes an installer will come out and they will have a guarantee or a warranty, but it's just saying that if the panels break, we'll fix them. That's basically it. I only work with one installer. They have what's called a net zero home. It's predictable usage, guaranteed production, and home automation. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but predictable usage means you know how much energy you're actually using. There's something that goes on the wall that shows you how much your home is actually using. You've got guaranteed production, and guaranteed production means that essentially what's going to show you is how much is the system going to produce, because you don't need to have a PhD in order to go solar in solar, which is you want it to be simple. And so guaranteed production just says, hey, these panels are going to produce this much energy, and if they don't, then we're going to pay the difference. I think that's our national alert. And then home automation. So there's a couple different things in here that just make sure that you're with an installer that's going to be around for 25 years, not somebody that's going to be possibly out of business in the next little while. And then number two is the wrong financing, and this is paramount to people who understand infinite banking. And so if you already have a policy and you've built it up to where you actually have some funding in your policy, you've got some cash value in your policy, you can actually use that cash value to go solar cash, and then you can make those payments back to yourself. So there's a few different ways to do it. There's finance programs, there's purchase programs, and there's what's called a PPA, or a power purchase agreement, which is kind of like a lease. But let me give you a real world example here. And so there's something in solar that is called a dealer fee. And essentially what it is it is buying down the interest rate by front loading some of the interest that you pay. So in this example here, the solar system is $56,000, and it's a 3.99 APR. But that 3.99 is actually artificially low because what they did was they front loaded some of the interest into the initial payment. And the reason that that works or makes sense in solar is because of the tax credit. And so because you're getting a tax credit on the system, if you front load some of the interest into the initial payment, then it means that you're essentially getting a tax credit on some of that interest. But our system cost here is $56,000 and the monthly payment is $216. So they've been able to lower the monthly payment to $216. Most people just look at what's the monthly payment. This is the same exact system at a higher interest rate and a higher monthly payment. But what you'll notice here is the system cost is significantly less. It's $36,900 because there is no dealer fee. The dealer fee is charged by the dealer. And what I want you to understand is if you are somebody who already has a policy, that you can actually save a lot of money by self-financing. In this case, there's a lot of interest being paid right off of the top. So I'm going to give you an example, and we can maybe chat one-on-one if you are somebody who already has a policy, and I can show this to you a little bit more. But this is kind of what it looks like. Let's say house A, we've got a $56,000 system. There is a tax credit of $17,000. And a lot of times somebody takes that $17,000 and they go on a holiday, right? They take the money and they just go and they blow it on something. They don't have an accountant that understands how to depreciate the solar system. And so after, say, 3 years, they've got $7,000 worth of pay down and they owe $48,000 on their system. We already saw long-term, you're going to save money no matter what. But what happens if you sell your house in 3 years from now, right? So I'm going to show that with you right here. This is house A. House B is a savvy banker, an infinite banker, and they paid for the system cash. They didn't really pay cash. They paid it out of the policy, some of the cash value from their investments, and they're paying themselves back a monthly payment. Their tax credit's a little bit lower. It's $11,000, but they're a savvy banker. They're not going to take that and go and spend it on a holiday. They're going to apply that back to their policy loan. And if they want to take a vacation, they're going to take another policy loan and pay it back the way that you normally would, right? Be an honest banker. Mm-hmm. They have an accountant that understands depreciation and is able to get an extra $7,000 back from depreciation. They've got some principal pay down. And at the end of 3 years, they owe $8,692. Now, here's why this matters, right? If your home value goes up by $32,000, house A, if they sell in 3 years, their home went up by $32,000, but they owe $48,000. So they're actually in a negative position after 3 years. Savvy banker, the home value went up by $32,000. Solar equity is $23,000 because they only owe $8,000 left. And so even if they sell their home in a couple of years from now, they were able to make money right out of the gate, right in the first 3 years. And over the course of 25 years, they're going to save even more. So that's just a little bit about the banker's advantage. Make sure that if you're sitting with somebody and learning a little bit about solar, that it's not somebody that knocked on your door who doesn't understand infinite banking concept. Make sure that it's that you're talking to somebody, going through all of the different options, because if you think like an infinite banker, there's some pretty creative stuff that you can do.
So here's my question: how do you know if your accountant understands the depreciation of solar or not?
You would need to be able to talk to somebody that understands commercial versus residential, because there's something called a net metering agreement, which says that you're buying and selling energy. You can actually apply for commercial instead of residential. So it would just be something that I can also make a connection with to somebody.
Okay. And then in your example of the savvy banker, do they have to, because you had a slide before that where they front loaded interest and they didn't. If you don't pay for the thing up front, do they always front load the interest with that dealer fee, or is there an option to just finance it without the dealer fee? And how does that, is that an option, or do you have to pay for it up front with a policy loan or with whatever cash?
Yeah, so there's a few ways to do it. Lots of times, the person who is selling the solar system will have the choice to have a higher interest rate and no dealer fee, or to have a lower interest rate with a dealer fee. And the problem is that most people in solar don't understand finance, and so they don't give an option. They only give the option with the lowest monthly payment because 99% of people are just looking for a low payment, and they're not thinking the way that your clients are thinking.
Right.
So usually there is an option if you're talking to somebody who understands it. They can walk you through it. And I have a family who they did a higher interest rate and no dealer fee, and their plan is to roll that into their banking system at some point in the future. So I think the main takeaway isn't there's one way to do it. Some people, if they're not getting a tax credit, a lease makes more sense. So it really just depends on the situation. How long are you going to be staying there for? Are you there for 25 years? Are you passing this, home on to your kids, or are you moving in 3 years from now? Will kind of affect. And so just want to make sure that the person you're talking with is asking you those types of questions.
That makes sense. What is the best way for people to connect with you? How would people get an evaluation and spend some time with you, Jimmy?
So we can link something up in the description here that will let them be able to book something. Essentially, it's a couple of steps. The first one is they just upload the utility bill. We need that in order to create an accurate estimate. How much energy you use will determine the size of the system, which will determine the pricing. So that would be the next step. So you'd click on the link, add in a little bit of information, upload a utility bill. And then we'd have somebody meet with you over Zoom, see if it makes sense or not to move to the next step. And if it does, then the final step would be what's called the site survey, where somebody comes out, gets up on your roof, measures everything out. And not every home does qualify. So it does matter by a couple of different factors. It's almost like in the insurance world, the site survey would be like the physical, right? Like if you might be able to get this, you might not. But we don't charge anything for any of that process.
It's awesome. We'll make sure that link's down below. And Jimmy, as always, I'm so grateful for your insights and your time, taking time to educate me and our audience and clients, this community. I think it's really impactful, and this is the kind of knowledge people need to have when making these decisions, so they don't end up as that example you showed. So thanks so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate having you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for everything you're doing for your community and for the IBC space in general.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this clip. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. We try to come out with something interesting in relation to retirement every single week. If you haven't already, please take a moment to leave a comment with something that you'd like to learn more about or that you have a question on. I'm Daniel Rondberg. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.